Hi, so this is further to some questions that you asked about what can I see happening with coronavirus, with what's happening in the world at the moment, sort of like an update on what I'm picking up. So I wrote your questions down, and during a meditation wrote down some answers that I could pick up what's happening. So there's actually two areas that I want to address. One is the reality of what you're going through, and the other one is the spiritual side of what's happening as well. So with side to reality, someone asked, when will the borders in Australia be lifted? I'm not fond of giving exact timing because I have never ever been good with timing in things. It's more I do a sensing whether something's close to happening or not, but when you need to know a time, I did ask if I could get given a particular month. So what did I write down? I feel this could still be a while with borders in Australia because the authorities are playing it safe. It feels to be more August, September before there is actually free travelling between states. I do believe that does feel to be compassionate grounds, though. If you are working as a fly-in, fly-out type worker, it feels that they will be allowed to fly home, but they may have to then stay at home. They won't be able to. There's no fly-in, fly-out. It's like you either stay where you are or you fly back home, and then you have to stay home for a while, and that feels to be like September. So whether if you did fly back home and you didn't have work, whether they would still be able to compensate you for not working for a couple of months before you could fly back. I'm not sure. I think there is some kind of compensation there in that period of time. What else did I write? So around about July, it seems to be around about July that there is more definite answers for those of you that have got relatives in different states that haven't been able to get back. The reuniting of families seems to come first. That area is opened up with borders first. Actually just travelling, like taking a caravan holiday to another state, that sort of feels to be more later September to October, around about that time, where it's more like free travel. Travelling within your own state is okay. It's travelling into other states that'll be later in the year. And with overseas travel, it feels to be it depends on which country you're going to be going to. It feels to be December before you could actually, this is not holiday travelling either. This is travelling if it's essential for your business needs, or if you have to go and visit family that are ill. I don't believe there's the availability to travel to family just to say hello to them because they live in another country. That will still be done via videos. You'll only be able to go there if they are unwell, dying, or if you essentially have to go for travel reasons. That seems to be still available. But for any other reason, I can't see that the planes and everything opening up to have more travel till after December of this year. What other questions did I get asked? Will there be a second wave of coronavirus? Yes. So I'm only really picking up Australia when I talk about this. I'm not picking up what's happening in other parts of the world. But in Australia, yes, there is outbreaks of coronavirus, but it's outbreaks in certain areas. So, and they seem to be onto it really quickly. So they're monitoring when someone has an outbreak, and the government are sort of isolating that area and the people that have been in contact. So it feels like there's little outbreaks within Australia, but they're onto it straight away. So it's not as bad as back in March when everyone went into isolation and everybody shut down. It doesn't feel to go back to that again. It feels just to be just these little outbreaks that are controlled. This is not to do with one of the questions that were asked me, but I keep seeing problems with banks. And have been concerned about the Westpac Bank for quite some time. I've actually mentioned this a few times. I've felt for a while that one of the large banks that we have here in Australia will close its doors, and it's a shock because everyone will think, no, that won't happen. The government will support them or somebody will help them out. But I do feel like one of the big banks, which I think would be Westpac maybe, is going to close its doors or just not be able to save itself. And it's from that point onward that it feels like other banks start to change the way in which they do things. So I keep seeing something happening around money and money changing. I can't quite pinpoint how that works, maybe because my logic mind is trying to only see things as I know it to be, so I can't quite work out what this change is with money. It's maybe just because it's going to be a cashless society and it's all just virtual money. I'm not sure what that is, but it definitely feels like banks are changing and money's changing in the future. What else did I write down? So a question was, is there a vaccine for coronavirus? Yes, there will be a vaccine for coronavirus, and I believe that's not too far away from being revealed. Whether they haven't really tested it on people, but they're confident enough that it'll do the job. Will we have to have mandatory vaccine? I don't feel that's the case, because I feel there'll be too many people that stand up against mandatory vaccine. So it feels more like it'll be a bit like the flu vaccine, where if you're elderly or if you're vulnerable to getting that virus, then you will be highly recommended by the government and by the doctors to have the vaccine. But I still feel like you will have a choice as to whether you have it or not. I don't feel like it is a mandatory thing where they will blackmail you into saying, you know, you can't have this if you don't have the vaccine, sort of thing. Question, is China being made accountable? What I can see, I have this vision where countries seem to be going back into themselves. Do you know, years ago, before there was travel worldwide and before there was the internet and everyone was linked, people tended to stay in their own country. It feels like it's going to go back into that period of time for a short amount, or for a certain period of time. Like each country is contained within itself and working out how to protect everyone within its own country before there is again travel between countries. It seems to be this, I'm not sure how long it goes for, how long the period goes for, but it seems to be where the import exports also feel like to be cut out of China, because I have this vision of like China being in a bubble of its own, and then Australia being in its bubble of its own, and America being in a bubble of its own, and the imports and exports are changing between countries. So seems to be looking for opportunities in different countries to export where they hadn't before and import where they hadn't before. And China seems to suffer in that way, where they can't export as much. People in other countries don't feel like they're going to be taking as much of their product. So I know I had this talk the other day with somebody who said, with Australia, we have, say, the barley and the crops, we have an excess of it which has to be exported out of the country. As much as we can buy Australian and keep products in Australia, we can't keep buying it all. There's going to be an excess of it, so it has to go out of Australia. But looking at different areas, and someone said, well, maybe the government could buy the excess crop, and then when another country has a national disaster, instead of giving money, send the crop that they own. So this could be options to be looked at in the future. What else did I write down? There's the conspiracy theories that were floating around a few months ago. There was conspiracy theories about evils of the world and people being taken down and arrested behind the scenes, and 5G being detrimental to health. When I asked Spirit about these questions, I get that there is a out of control and a lack of control. But there's more balance coming into play. I've been saying this since, I think back in 2005, I said that in 2015, the energies of the world would start to bring in a balance of, because it's like there's the rich and the poor, and there's the controlling and the being controlled, and it's been out of balance for such a long time. And I have felt for a very long time that the energies is bringing this all back into balance. So when somebody has been operating from a place of greed, money, control, power, they are going to be removed from their position. Now, I have no idea how that is going to happen. I just get shown that anyone who's been operating from a place of money, power, greed, well, they seem to be removed from their position. And that's not just people high up in power. That is people that you know that live in your area who have been living out of their ego and being narcissistic and being bullyish to people. They're going to get, it's not so much a lesson, it's an awakening within inside themselves to make them see how they've been living. But someone who is wealthy and powerful in the world, who's operating from a heart center, nothing will happen to them. They will still be in that position of wealth and power, as long as it all has to do with intention. If the intention has been coming from an ego-based greed without consideration for fellow human beings, those types of people will be removed from their position or have a life awakening of themselves. And those that have been living and in a wealthy position, who have good intention and who have been living from a heart center, they will continue to be in that position. They won't lose what they have. Something that I can see lots of is, I know so many people are panicked about jobs and job situations, but what I keep getting shown all the time lately is there is going to be so many more jobs available in the future, because there's jobs that are going to get created from looking at the situations that we've been through and seeing what is needed that hasn't been there before is going to create new jobs. I actually feel like I have such an excited energy when I think about jobs in the future, because there just feels like there's going to be so many created, and people are going to be working from home a lot more. So you just have a think about now what happened with what the virus, even though cafes shut and hotels shut, they came up with the ideas of home delivery, which, you know, they weren't doing before. And it puts you in a position where you start thinking, how am I going to make this work? Like, it's not working at the moment, so what can I do to make it work? And it gets you creatively thinking. There's going to be so much more of that. So much more creative thinking and seeing where things are needed that weren't there before. And that is going to create more jobs. So I actually feel really excited about all the jobs that are going to be coming up, because it feels like it's going to be the best time ever for everybody to be doing what they love rather than struggling to find work. So that side of it feels to be good. It might take a little while to work through that, but it is definitely coming. I also see a lot more video conferencing happening in the future. So doctor's appointments, if you need to speak with the bank managers or a lawyer or real estate agents, the way that they had to do video conferencing during the virus is going to continue, and it'll actually become a normal part of life. There'll be a lot more video conferencing, Zoom videos. It seems to be the way that we're heading with that. Fuel changes, there's transport changes, less fossil fuels in the future coming up. Someone asked me, will people protect nature and environment more? No, I can't say that people will protect it more, because you've got people on different levels of awareness, and you're always going to have people on different levels of awareness. You're always going to have those that are kind, caring and looking after everything around them, and you're always going to have those that don't care about anyone but themselves. That's life. That won't change. But what is happening, this is more on the spiritual side of the collective worldwide, where we are going into it, where we are sending. There's been many light workers on this earth for the last 60 years. They knew they were coming here for this, their whole intention. So they usually are the ones that are born psychics, born healers, they're born knowing that they're here to serve their human fellow beings and the earth. And in the last 30 years, they've risen to the surface of being teachers, showing the way. Those people are grounding. They're the ones going first. They're the light. They're the showers. You know, the way showers. They're going first. They're holding the ground for those that are coming up. You'll know who I'm. If you're one of those, because you'll know what I'm talking about, because you can feel it. You're the ones that you're already working in this type of field, and you have been for the last 30 years, working in energy. Then there are those that were born within the last 30 years, who knew also that they were going to be doing this work, and they have come and joined the ones that were already here to start with. These are the healers, the psychics. They've come along for the ride as well. And they are learning at the moment. They're still learning, and they're also spreading awareness themselves. So they are also holding energy for those that are coming up. Then there are those that are just waking up now. Those of you that are realizing that you've been living from an ego base, not seeing things through your inner being, and suddenly seeing like you've got a different pair of lenses on, and the world just looks totally different to you. What used to worry you before no longer worries you anymore. It's like you've got a whole new personality. You've had an awakening, and you can see, you also knew that you came here and this would be happening, but you've just got a little bit, you didn't get lost on the way. You've just been living more from your ego self rather than your spiritual self, and now you've made the decision to live more from your spiritual self. And then there are those that are just on the edge of waking up. You quite aren't sure. You kind of You like to live still in the ego, but you're also seeing other people living more consciously, and you think, well, that looks interesting, but I'm a bit frightened to let go of the way I know how to do things. So you're kind of like, you're just on the edge. I don't know whether I want to do that just yet or not. So just be kind to yourself. There's no right or wrong with this. We all go at the pace that we're able to go to. So, and then there are those that are just going to stay in their ego-based living. They're the ones that see everything in black and white. They'll be the ones standing up and yelling and fighting and hurting other people because they're angry and they're frustrated, and they can't see any other way of solving a problem rather than to fight, physically fight, or to scream and yell, or to jump up and down. That's the way that's the only way that they can see that this can be solved. So what else have I written down? Because the old has to fall away for the new to come. You'll notice that with anything in your life, and the old goes away and to make way for the new. And it's just a different stage that you're at, understanding what you're letting go of, what beliefs you're letting go of, to what's coming in now. So we are coming to the end of stage 1, which was the coronavirus, and we are going into stage 2, which is a lot more truth coming out. The truth we are being told, and even people who their whole life have believed things to be a certain way are going to be changing their own beliefs. So you might find a doctor who his entire life he has just prescribed pills to somebody to fix an ailment, where now he might be seeing that there is another way of doing it, and he might be able to use diet, change in diet, and doing more mind work with somebody and healing, energy healing work, rather than actually just giving out tablets to fix things. So even people that have been in a position of thought something the same way their whole life, they're starting to wake up and go, hang on, it's not that they've made a mistake. They've never made a mistake, and they're not in error for what they've done. They're just seeing that there could be another option, and they're opening up and allowing themselves to use that option. It's like all the stubbornness and the mindset of just being stuck a certain way is going to break away and crumble, and be open to new possibilities. So in closing to this, just before you were born, you all have known that you're going to be part of this. Every single one of you knew. Your soul agreed when it came to earth, no matter what age you are now, your soul would have known that you were going to be a part of this change in humanity. Those that have died have died from coronavirus, or have died from something happening in the world right now that may seem violent. Those people are the most selfless souls, because they agreed before they came here that they would die in circumstances that were going to bring change to humanity. It's like they have sacrificed their soul, as their life on earth, to save other souls. Like that, they are just the most beautiful souls ever. So there's ones here that are here working with the people on a physical level that are trying to save souls, and there are those that have given up their own life to save the souls of others. It's an amazing journey that we're on. Something I did forget to mention that I put in my notes was in the USA, they seem to be, for my friends that are over in the USA, they are going to go through more traumatic time than any other country. And I do feel like Donald Trump will not be their president by the end of this year. I think it's the end of this year that with the timing. there is a new president to come into America, but at the same time I feel for some reason I have grave concerns for the president that's coming in. It's like Trump goes out, there's a new one come in, and then I'm really, really concerned for what happens to him when he comes in. So I don't really know the circumstances around that. It's just, I don't have a good, I feel like America's got to get worse before it's going to get better. But there is definitely a collective of people. I know there's racism alive, well and truly alive throughout the world, but the racism does not, to me, feel like it's between black and white or a different nationality. The racism feels to be between the collective group of people and authority. That's where the distance is now. It's authority and people. So in the past, when you felt like you've had to fight for your rights, that's where it feels like it's moving, where people are going to group together as a collective and stand up to authority so that we can all live in harmony together. And even though it looks like it's falling apart, the world's falling, it is kind of falling apart because the old always has to fall away for the new to come. But it's all for the better. It is all for the better. And we all agreed to be a part of this, and if we all agreed to be a part of it, then we all agreed because we know it's a change for the better. So I'll just leave that with you for now, and I hope that helps you to see that we are on the right path. We are heading into a better world, and yeah, much love to you all.